Now, Ned Ryun, the founder and CEO of American Majority, the author of American Leviathan, The Birth of the Administrative State and Progressive Authoritarianism. Ned, good to have you back with us, sir.
Yeah, good to be with you, Vince. But how absurd was that segment about Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline? And if you were to listen to Kamala, fit as a fiddle. No, he's great. Good to go. I guess my next question is, well, why'd you replace him then?
Yeah.
I mean, it just the whole interview was a disaster on so many different levels.
And, and she said there in that answer, she said, well, this election is not about Joe Biden. But not anymore. You're right. In fact, it's about you and your integrity. So why did you lie to us about Joe Biden's lack of mental fitness?
I think it's one of the greatest political scandals in the last generation or two. Maybe I'd put it in one of the top overall political scandals, the conspiracy of silence from Kamala Harris and others who overtly and actively covered up his cognitive and physical decline.
The media.
For years. Yeah, the media, the corporate propagandists. And when she's asked about it, she continues to spin, deny, deflect, when in fact we know obviously he was not doing well at all. And I think it was going on for a lot longer than they wanted to admit. But yeah, the whole interview to me, I mean, what did it last, Spence? 20, 25 minutes maybe? Mm-hmm. Because she showed up 15 minutes late and then clearly was not prepared to answer a lot of these questions, did not want to answer on immigration. And I got to hand it to Bret. He would not let it go. And I was pretty impressed by what he did and just wanting answers on the immigration front. She would not give them. Not letting her go on the transgender surgery issue. And also on this cognitive decline. It was a brutal interview. And clearly, the video I really wanted to see from last night was her four staffers literally, I feel like they were about to jump Bret to end the interview. That's how bad it was going.
Yeah, it was like Rocky IV, throwing the damn towel. They're just screaming. Everyone's going crazy. Get her out of there. Yeah. And that really was, I think, the biggest indicator to me, Ned, that although the left and the right, they react to things with a little bit of bias towards how they want things to go. But the reality is, like, Kamala's team made it really clear last night, they thought it was going horribly. That's why you have four people all shaking their hands and trying to get this thing out.
It was giving me vibes afterwards. I was thinking this really felt like the June debate that really ended Joe Biden. You kind of got that vibe from last night that this was so bad. And I think you're going to see this play out in the polls. We're going to see it play out in the next couple of days. And I've said this on X, that I would not be surprised if in the next few national polls a couple of days from now, as this really starts to impact people, that Donald Trump might come close to being tied in the RCP average on national polls. Forget the battleground polls. I think that's how bad that went last night, that I think you're going to see Donald Trump surge a little bit in the RCP average in the national polls.
Well, I mean, that's a big statement. Why do you think it will be impactful? We've had a lot of really big events this year. And they've had, some incremental changes for sure. But, like, President Trump was shot in the head. There was a second assassin attempting to kill him. We've had any number of major news items that you thought might change things a lot. Why do you think last night's interview is going to have the impact that you're describing?
Because I think people saw very clearly this woman is not prepared on any level to actually be the commander-in-chief. I mean, just think about, she could barely last, let's say 25 minutes to be generous, with Bret Baier. How's she going to last with Putin? How's she going to last with President Xi of China? How's she going to last with any of these people in a serious situation for our national interests? And I think people saw last night, and again, this is what J.D. Vance does every weekend. Yes. He faces, I would say, 3 hostile interviews on any given Sunday morning. This is the first real interview that Kamala Harris has had to give on what we would say is a fair and objective, real interview, not some 60 minutes edited, not Stern, not any of those, or The View. This was a real interview, and she completely collapsed under 25 minutes of pressure. And I think people saw that. They realized she's not up to the task. She does not have any answers. I mean, she literally, when she was being asked pointed questions on her policy stances, she's like, well, you can go to my website. You don't know what you actually believe on any of these issues. You don't have readily available answers.
Right.
And so I think she was completely exposed last night. And I think, again, like I said, the residuals of people seeing these clips online, of it really starting to sink in. I mean, we saw the Fox national poll. Trump has flipped it 4 points. He was down 2, now he's up 2.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see more polls like that in the next few days.
Look, one more thing on the interview, and then I do want to get some more of your insights on what's happening across the country, especially in the early vote. But the reaction out of the kind of the North Korean style news networks we have in America is that Kamala did fantastic, and Bret Baier was just mean. Here's Mika Brzezinski this morning.
An embarrassing bad faith effort by a once respected host to play to an audience of one. The host's constant rude interruptions were designed to distract from the issues and facts that Trump and his acolytes try and twist and distort every day. And on Fox News, they try and avoid, and they couldn't. When Kamala Harris realized the host was not going to let her speak, the only way the vice president could give Fox viewers an opportunity to hear what she had to say was to talk back over him. Was he making sure that happened? I personally think absolutely. Did she do well in this environment? Of course.
Of course she did well. So why do you sound so angry about it, Mika? If Kamala did great, you sound really grumpy about it.
Kamala almost came unglued in that interview last night. I mean, she was literally, it felt like on the verge of coming unglued. And I would remind people listening, Bret Baier interviewed Trump, I believe it was either earlier this year or last year. It was just as tough an interview that he did with Donald Trump, and Trump continued. I think it went twice as long, maybe a full hour, with Bret Baier with Trump, and it was just as tough an interview. So Bret Baier can give it to both sides as equally as he gave it to Kamala Harris last night. And the fact that they are screaming bloody murder shows, in my mind, they know it went as badly as I'm saying it went. And I think they're going to see those things, being displayed in these poll numbers coming up in the next few days.
The last thing I'll say is, that's going to attract an unusually big audience for Fox of people who don't normally watch it because they want to see how Kamala Harris interfaces with the Fox host. And they may have been surprised to find out, contrary to what Mika said, that there were some things that the legacy press have kept from them. For instance, Jocelyn Nungari's mother talking about the loss of her daughter on video in congressional testimony, and laying that at the feet of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That, Ned, was, I think, the most devastating moment in the entire interview. Yep. And Kamala did not have an answer for it. She just pretended to develop empathy at that moment.
When, in fact, what they have done in a very systematic and overt way for the entire time they've been in office, the last 3.5 years, has been to import 10, 12 million illegals in a systematic way, overtly, Bret kept on referring to the executive orders in the first couple weeks. I think it was a total of almost 300 executive orders in the first year to annihilate our southern border security, to bring about what we're seeing with this massive influx of illegals, 13,000 murders, I think it's 600,000 plus with criminal records. They did it intentionally, and they did it, of course, to gain a new voting bloc. But I was pretty impressed. I have to tell you, I had kind of low expectations, wasn't sure how Bret was going to approach this. He was not going to let her off on the immigration issue. He kept on coming back to it, kept on pushing her on it, asked if she owed an apology to the American people, showed her this video that you just referenced, and she still refused to give him an answer because, again, what's she going to say? Yeah, we did this intentionally. What are you going to do about it? I mean, because they did it intentionally.
I will say my final analysis on why that interview ended up like it did last night. I think Bret had every incentive to do that kind of interview, every single incentive. That was the only way to go about it. They've had a lot of work. Fox has had a lot of work to do to try and win back their audience that wasn't satisfied with the way election night 2020 went, the Arizona call, all of that drama that happened, and the way everything's changed since then. And also, there's no way Kamala is going to do a second interview with Bret. None. So you may as well make the first one a banger. And that's what Bret did last night, and he really delivered. It was newsworthy and it was worthwhile.
But I have to tell you, Vince, when you go back and look at the questions he was asking, these are not gotcha questions. This was not an ambush. These are pretty obvious questions that you want to ask. Immigration, all of these things which people want to know the answers to. There was nothing untoward about what Bret was asking last night. Nope. It was just he was asking honest questions and wanted honest answers.
Yes.
And he couldn't get anything out of her.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. It was amazing. Well, I think she was exposed, though. I think that did happen. Hey,
100%.
The election. I know a number of states are early voting. North Carolina joins the list today. Are you able to divine anything out of that, Ned? What are we seeing across the country?
Well, North Carolina Republicans are running about 18 points ahead of where they were in 2020 in regards to absentee ballots. Again, they just started early voting yesterday, or today, actually.
Yeah.
So we're not going to really be able to see some of the early in-person voting statistics. But,
Sure. But Georgia, Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia, we're running about, are we running 11, 12 points ahead of where we were in 2020? Georgia, we're seeing a significant boost in early voting, and a lot of it's coming from the very red rural counties. And then we're starting to get the results back in Arizona, and we're already seeing some pretty positive trends. Although I have to tell you, the ballots were mailed out last week in Arizona, but not everyone has yet received them. So we're going to have to wait a few more days to see how the ballots are doing in Arizona. But I'm seeing positive trends across the board in Arizona, Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina. Pennsylvania is obviously another positive trend. So Republicans are running ahead by double digits, if not more, significant double digits of where they were in 2020. And that's a positive trend.
Yes.
I mean, this is the whole thing I've been trying to do for the last year and a half, Vince, is convince people, embrace the rules of the game, A, B, E, V, try to keep Trump as close as possible coming into Election Day. And on Election Day, obviously, Republicans traditionally crush Democrats on Election Day voting. So we're seeing the trends that I think I was hoping to see.
Yeah.
We're going to know a lot more next week after we see another week, and obviously next Tuesday is 2 weeks out. I think we're going to get a lot more information. But from what I'm seeing right now, it's all headed in the right direction.
Ned, finally, can you envision a scenario where we don't have to rely on Pennsylvania on election night to give us an answer about who won the election?
I mean, listen, I don't want to get overly optimistic about Virginia.
What about Michigan or Wisconsin?
Yeah, no, so I'm hearing rumblings. I have no proof yet that Kamala Harris and those folks might be canceling some ad buys in Milwaukee. I'm trying to get more details on that, but I'm starting to see. I think we can box them out in Wisconsin. I think we have a chance. I'm going to qualify that chance to beat them in Virginia. I could absolutely see a scenario where we don't need Pennsylvania, but I feel pretty positive actually about Pennsylvania as well. The one that is honestly giving me a little bit of heartburn is Nevada, if I'm being honest. It's one of the states that we've been working in and doing significant amount of work in. It's going to be pretty close. It's going to be right now I'm looking at events. Nevada to me looks like a coin toss.
So why did it change in Nevada so much? Because when Biden was in the race, Trump was winning by double digits in that polling. What changed in Nevada?
We're not obvious. The polls I've seen, we're not doing as well among white male voters. We're trying to address that. We've got just over 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. I know Nevada. I was expecting that Nevada was going to be close. I think it's going to play out that way. I would not be surprised if it goes one way or the other by 10, 15, 20,000 votes then. So I feel good about Arizona. I feel good about North Carolina. I'm pretty bullish on Wisconsin, and Nevada to me is a bit of a coin toss at this point, but we'll see next week when we get more results.
And finally, Georgia, I saw the Quinnipiac poll yesterday had Trump up by 7 in Georgia. Are we getting close to a point where Georgia is going to be a pretty clear Trump victory?
I think what you're seeing is the impact of the State Board of Elections being controlled by conservatives and implementing some of these election integrity reforms.
Yeah.
I think you're also seeing a lot of people investing. Again, I'm not playing in Georgia, but I know people who are in regards to the ABEV, absentee ballot early vote approach.
Yep.
And they have put significant resources in. So I think you're seeing everything start to play out and start to really see that momentum. I think give it another week, but I think Georgia might start fading as a competitive state, and then it's all going to come down to probably Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin for Kamala Harris. That's kind of her last stand, those 3 states, and I think we have a really good chance of winning 2 of those.
Which is why they call it the Blue Wall. All right, thank you, Ned. Really appreciate it, sir. From American Majority and the author of American Leviathan. Always nice to talk to you, Ned.